Welcome to Occam's Razor. So I see Pierre Poilievre has gone into some specifics on what he's going to be doing for Canadian Armed Forces members and veterans. Yes, veterans have long complained about a backlog in getting those applications approved that they put in through the Veterans Affairs. So now they're saying that we've sacrificed so much to defend our country that we deserve to have all of you championing all of us veterans, right? In return for that sacrifice, Canada's veterans deserve a government that fights for them. Well, unfortunately, regardless of the backlog, and there is quite a backlog, and there has been quite a lot of abuse and mismanagement of the Canadian Armed Forces for the past 10 years. But as I watched your entire video, Pierre, and as I read this article here on CTV that's covering your video, again, I saw nothing whatsoever regarding the Jibbyjab or the abuse of authority that surrounded it, or how it has completely destroyed the Canadian Armed Forces, where people are just fleeing the organization. So unless you're going to address the abuse of authority that has been performed and the fact that Veterans Affairs refuses to acknowledge Jibbyjab injuries as being work-related, especially when they were coerced to take it, and unless you're going to deal with all the people in the Canadian Armed Forces that are there, especially in the senior officer positions, who pushed this abuse of authority, and that led to the complete destruction of the armed forces, whereby nobody's joining and people are fleeing. Unless you address that, all these other perks that you're talking about just aren't going to matter, because people aren't going to join. Now, it's going to help those of us who've left. It's going to help those that are in now. I'm not sure if it's going to help all the other ones that are in the process of leaving or have left recently. I personally, myself, when I was forced out because I wouldn't take the Jibbyjab, I left everything behind. I mean, I left my medals, my flag that they gave me, the shadow box that the lads in the shop made for me. I couldn't even go back to pick it up. It wasn't ready for me by the time I left, right? When they were doing departure with dignity, which I refer to it as departure with indignity, because there was no dignity in my departure whatsoever, being treated like a second-class citizen for refusing an experimental injection. So unless you're willing to deal with all these senior officers, you're going to have the same crappy, immoral, unethical officers who will gleefully abuse their troops at the next drop of a hat, if so ordered to. Because that's what happened, right? That's their only defense that they have, is that we were following orders. You are under orders, even though it wasn't an order, like I described in my last video. It was an administrative requirement. But all these things that you're promising, none of it is really worth anything unless you fix the Canadian Armed Forces. You realize that most of the non-commissioned members that were there with experience that you could use to train your new troops have left and have no reason to train any new troops. Why would they? Why would they do that for such a corrupt organization? So unless you want to deal with that corruption that's in there, all of it is for naught. You have to deal with that problem first. You're not dealing with the elephant in the room. It's a bull in a china shop, and it's destroying the armed forces. So unless you're willing to deal with the refusal of these departments, National Defense and Veterans Affairs, to deal with all that abuse that they're doing and this dysfunction that they have, that they can't deal with the injuries that they've caused to their soldiers, deferring them to a program that they're no longer allowed to even get into, the Jibbyjab Injury Support Program, because it's been over 3 years. You strung them along all this time thinking that they would get some care taken care of them in the armed forces, and that once they got out with this injury, that Veterans Affairs would give them some help, but no, they said it's not a work-related injury. You're going to have to go to the other program that's taking over a year just for a caseworker to get back to you. So you just don't understand. The troops have been abandoned by this country. I joined in 1984 when we were fighting communists as part of the Cold War, right? And then I had to leave in February 2022, 38 years later to the day, because communists had taken over. So unless you deal with all those commies that are in the system, why should anyone join to get all these benefits? Why? Why? Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Let's get to, I mean, I watched this press conference in full with the Canadian Armed Forces, and I was like, wow, how many people did we throw out during COVID for not getting the vaccination? All right, let's take a look at this.
Any and all conditions are on the table for consideration for enrollment. In the past, as I mentioned, there was only those two groups, fit and unfit. And now with this group that's in the middle, fit to the task, we're able to accept folks with a whole host of different conditions. ADHD is a good example, asthma is another, anxiety is another, and the list goes on and on. The important thing to note with all medical conditions, there's a spectrum.
Error, examine.